Nerdrotic.com.
It's almost not fair that I'm going to review the first 3 episodes of Hawkeye after watching season 1 of Daredevil because that is the best of the best, but I'm going to do it anyway. So if you were looking for that hard, gritty, violent Clint Barton Hawkeye series, which his character really does deserve because he's one of the most underdeveloped characters in the MCU, well, this isn't it because it's the Kate Bishop show.
Come on!
Hawkeye is the 5th and final Marvel series to air on Disney Plus this year. And if you count Sony films, we've already gotten 4 Marvel movies this year with 1 to go. That's a lot of Marvel, and while there are people who of course are going to love this series because at least they try to have fun in this, it still suffers from what is Marvel's biggest problem this year. Is it Marvel fatigue? No. Is it superhero fatigue? No. It's bad storytelling fatigue. And maybe that has something to do with Disney stock slumps after streaming growth falls. Disney shares sank as much as 9% Thursday after media conglomerate posted earnings that missed Wall Street expectations and revealed a significant slowdown in its flagship Disney Plus streaming service. Now, to be fair to Disney, they never said they were going to give us something hard and gritty. We always knew we were going to get a PG Hawkeye that was supposed to be the Die Hard of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and the only thing it has in common with Die Hard is Christmas. Now, I don't necessarily have a problem with Jeremy Renner's performance or Haley Seinfeld's, who gives a good effort at making the character Kate Bishop not as insufferable as she is in the comic books. I really can't blame the character. What's truly insufferable is modern writing in modern Marvel comic books. How insufferable is it? I am literally intrigued and in awe of both of them. If this is what it's like to date other women, then I applaud all women dating other women right now because this is incredible. Motorcycle courtship chase, check. Missiles and explosions, yup. And now we're just flying together in the sky to a giant heart. I swear if they come back married, I'm going to be so jealous. And never mind, we have comics written now where it's totally okay to kill innocent store clerks and blue-collar workers in the name of the environment. The Hawkeye series is loosely based on Matt Fraction's run back in 2012 that I sold in my shop. It was very well received. It sold pretty decently, and I thought it was a bit overhyped, but okay. Who's Matt Fraction? Well, he's Mr. Kelly Sue DeConnick.
Would you please get your politics out of my comic books? I'm like, what comic books are you reading?
I'm fine, I just,
And if you don't like my politics, don't buy my book. Problem solved.
threw up in my mouth a little bit.
I would say so far in the first 2 episodes, Hawkeye is a loose adaptation of the Fraction run mixed in with the MCU, with a lot of MCU sprinkled in. The episode starts out in 2012. We get a little family moment with young Kate Bishop. We see her dad and her mom having an argument because her dad is obviously a loser and has some bad business dealing, and they might have to sell the penthouse they're in. Parents figure out Kate's eavesdropping. Dad goes upstairs, gives some fatherly advice, and then goes downstairs and dies because we can't have any good dads in Marvel, which I suppose is an improvement on the dad from the comics who has criminal dealings that lead to Kate Bishop getting kidnapped. He dies because this is the day of the Battle of New York City now. Before Kate gets taken away by her mom, she sees Hawkeye in action, giving Kate a bit of a hero complex, and at her dad's funeral, she asks for a bow and arrow. Then we head into the credits, and this is how I know it's the Kate Bishop show guest starring Hawkeye, because the opening credits are a montage of her origin. Cut to present day, and we're still on Kate Bishop because this is the Kate Bishop show. She's in college, she climbs a wall, she knocks down a bell in a bell tower, gets in a little trouble, says she's sorry to mom, and then goes to a charity auction. At this point, my normie friend, you're probably wondering, why is Kate Bishop called Hawkeye and Clint Barton called Hawkeye? Why can't they give Kate Bishop a different name like they did with Roy Harper in The Green Arrow, calling him Speedy and then Red Arrow and then eventually Arsenal? Short answer, they were lazy. Then we finally get to Hawkeye, Clint Barton's Hawkeye. He's with his family at Rogers the Musical, and we need to stop right there. It's not Captain Rogers, it's Steve Rogers, Captain America. There have been plenty of attempts to get new Captain Americas in Marvel Comics, even recently with Sam Wilson, and it's never worked because Steve Rogers is Captain America, just like Clint Barton is Hawkeye and Peter Parker is Spider-Man. There's a reason Kate Bishop is known as Kate Bishop and Miles Morales is known as Miles Morales. Couple Rogers the Musical with Sprite calling him Captain Rogers in the Eternals.
So now that Captain Rogers and Iron Man are both gone, who do you think's gonna lead the Avengers?
And it's pretty clear Disney doesn't want you to refer to Steve Rogers as Captain America anymore. I wonder why is that? I digress. So Clint Barton and his family are watching Rogers the Musical. It's meant to be cheesy, but I don't know if Disney realizes that Disney plus Marvel series are the Rogers Musical within the MCU. As with all Disney plus series, there is a good concept buried beneath the overall Disney of everything. Back to Kate Bishop, because it's the Kate Bishop show, and we're off to a charity auction with her mom and the swordsman from Marvel Comics, Jack Duquesne. This is where we get to my favorite part of both episodes, the auction heist, and yes, that's sarcasm. Now, Kate Bishop, like I said, has a hero complex. She hears somebody threatening her mom, so she follows this person, Armand Duquesne, who was Jack Duquesne's uncle, down to a black market auction. I don't know if this is part of the charity auction or not, where they're selling dinosaur skulls and the Ronin sword and costume, which were found in the wreckage of the Avengers mansion, making the Avengers the most irresponsible superhero team of all time, aside from not telling any countries, governments, organizations, or any other planets that you're bringing back half of the population of the universe. You also decide to just leave all of your shit around at the wreckage of your mansion. What'd you do? Just walk away? Again, I digress. Kate Bishop is snooping around this auction. She walks past a room where she sees some guys getting ready for something, and then one of the walls just explodes. After the wall explodes, our thieves are looking for a watch. You know how I know they're looking for a watch?
We've got 90 seconds to find a watch. Everything else is secondary.
That's right. The thieves who were observed in a room getting ready together and then went ahead and put masks on decided to tell us exactly what they were looking for and exactly how much time they were looking for it. During the confusion, Jack Duquesne steals the Ronin sword and Kate Bishop puts on the Ronin costume and starts fighting bad guys. We're not only shown in the animated montage origin that Kate is amazing, we're constantly told how amazing she is. That is MCU. This brings us to the first fight scene where the very green Kate Bishop, who just put on that costume, takes on 5 or 6 armed guys who weigh about 50 to 100 pounds more than she does. There's a part where she's fighting with wine bottles, and I think this is showing off her skills. I like this, and I will also note I wish they would have done that a lot more with Hawkeye as well. But then there's this. And this. And this.
This is bullshit.
Oh, but she's not done fighting off 300-pound Russian guys. Remember that watch they were looking for? I'm sure you haven't forgotten. Well, one of the burglars ends up finding it, but then Deus Ex Dog comes in and randomly attacks him for no particular reason, and I'm not really sure what happened to the watch after this point, and they don't bring it up again. Kate saves the dog, somebody gets it on video, and that's important later. The act of saving the one-eyed dog, who's later named Lucky the Pizza Dog, saves Kate Bishop, but not before the bad guys see her, and we know the bad guys see her because one of the bad guys takes off his mask while all his friends yell his name so the audience could get a good look at Kazi, a character from the comics.
They're so stupid!
In the meantime, Clint sees on the news that Ronin is back and saving dogs. Now, this is something that's actually compelling that I would be interested in if this was the entire series. Now, once Clint sees Ronin on the news, there's a quick flashback of Ronin in Endgame. And the news lets us know that after terrorizing the New York Underground, Ronin hasn't been seen in years. So after accidentally stumbling into an auction that is selling black market Avengers costumes and weapons, then it gets broken into, then she puts on a costume and then beats off bad guys for the first time and then escapes and saves some dogs. She decides to go off to Armand's apartment where Armand is dead. Somebody comes home, so Kate has to leave. It's very important to point out that before she found Armand's body, she randomly comes across some monogrammed candy, which I'm sure will come into play later. This amazing decorated collegiate athlete gets caught once again by the tracksuit mafia, who are called the tracksuit Draculas in the comics, and I prefer that name. She beats the crap out of them again, and then she locks herself in a car. The tracksuit mafia, not being the sharpest tools in the shed, completely forgot that they brought baseball bats to beat up Kate, and they didn't use them to break into the car. They also forgot that they had guns. Clint comes in and saves the day, drags her into an alley, and finds out that Ronin is a girl. What? That's right. The New York media, the tracksuit mafia, and Clint all thought this was a boy, and there's some actors in Hollywood where this would probably be totally acceptable, but this is Haley Steinfeld we're talking about. Then we get to the second episode where not much happens. The first 2 episodes are really all about taking 2 steps forward, then 5 steps back. This one slows to an absolute crawl, so I'll be brief as possible. After the opening scene where Kate takes Clint back to her apartment and Clint explains to her that the Ronin costume has a lot of history and it's dangerous, the tracksuit mafia catches up with them again. Once again, they forgot they had guns, but they do have Molotov cocktails and they set the apartment on fire. Kate, Clint, and the dog are able to escape, but they had to leave behind the costume. And instead of, say, the tracksuit mafia getting the costume and doing something compelling, no, a firefighter ended up stealing the costume, and Clint has to go to some LARPing thing to get it back. They waste most of the episode doing this. I guess Disney's
perfect mix of creative excellence enhanced by data-driven audience insights
concluded that nerds like cosplay and LARPing. Instead of really digging into Ronin's past and maybe showing what he did over the last 5 years, I'm guessing those Avengers Endgame flashbacks are all we're going to see. And instead, we're getting a character study of Clint Barton, who was racked with guilt over that stuff we're not going to see. I mean, 10 minutes was spent on that LARPing scene and it was completely pointless. The other half is spent on Kate trying to unravel the mystery of what happened to Armand, and she automatically suspects Jack is up to something. Her mom either doesn't notice this at all because she's clueless or is in on it, and I'm guessing she's in on it. So there's this fencing scene between Jack and Kate. Jack is taking it easy on her and she gets pissed off, so she tries to stab him in the face and he disarms her, and that pisses her off even more, and she's trying to prove to her mom that Jack is hiding something. Now remember Armand's monogrammed candy that Kate found that I said would come up later? Well, it comes up later. Jack offers her one after being forced to apologize to Jack, so Jack just admitted to the daughter of his fiance that he murdered his uncle, or it could be nothing. I guess we'll find out. And this is probably how it's going to go down. Jack thinks he's gaming Kate's mom, but Kate's mom is really gaming Jack. Kate's mom's the head of a security company, so that's why she has access to all these magical apps that can just track anybody anywhere, which makes things very convenient for plot. I don't know why. It's not like Jack has much to offer. Early on, Armand said he didn't have any money, but we all know that outside of our main titular characters, all Disney men are either duplicitous, weak, incompetent, evil, or incompetently evil. Clinton had to send his family home, and he has 5 days until Christmas to fix this mess, because he promised to be home. So he tells his wife he's going to do a catch and release, and he gets himself caught on purpose by the tracksuit mafia. Kate goes to save him and fails miserably, and she ends up getting caught too. And she somehow manages to survive a 30-foot drop without a scratch. So both Clint and Kate are captured, and we heard earlier that she wants them alive, which I just assume because this is a Disney Plus series and there's no shortage of girl bosses. This brings us to the final scene, and I don't know if I was supposed to be impressed with this or this was supposed to be ominous. They told us in the closed captioning that ominous music was playing, but all I felt was nothing. This is supposed to be Marvel Comics, the realm of the extraordinary. Instead, we have the realm of the incredibly average. This is Echo, who is basically Lady Daredevil and Bullseye mix in a little bit of Elektra. In the comics, she doesn't have the most iconic costume in the world, but it's better than this. And this rounds out every Disney Plus series having a female villain. MCU, first it was Agatha. Remember, it was Agatha all along. Then we had Freckle Jesus. Then we had female Loki. All of these female villains have been previously victimized by either unjust systems or unjust men. And now we have Echo, who is, you guessed it, another previously victimized female villain. This brings us to the third episode, and guess what? We get another origin of a Z-list character in the Hawkeye show. You know who hasn't had a proper origin in the MCU? Hawkeye. That's right, we spend the first 8 minutes of this episode getting to know Echo, who definitely was a forerunner of the MCU back in Marvel Comics. Remember that cringe Taskmaster reveal in Black Widow?
Oh, no, 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 no.
Well, they had something very similar happen a decade back in a comic called The New Avengers with the original Ronin when it was revealed to be Echo. And that reveal went down in my comic shop about as well as the Taskmaster reveal went down. A lot of chuckles, a lot of rolled eyes. Echo has the same powers as the Taskmaster. She can mimic movements. She is deaf and the actress has a prosthetic leg, so therefore Echo has a prosthetic leg. So everything of note in the third episode, Echoes, happens in about the first 10 minutes. After getting to know a very young Echo, we do indeed get another Ronin flashback. Now in the comics, the Kingpin killed Echo's father and then raises her. In this show, she's raised by her father, and in that flashback scene, she witnesses Ronin killing him. Now I have to wait for the context before I judge this too harshly, but as it stands right now, I hate this. Why do I hate something that could be interesting? Well, maybe it has something to do with Disney's past record of deconstructing established male characters.
Down with the patriarchy.
Now they present Echo's dad in this show as some sort of soulful saint who just happens to work for a criminal organization. As with most Marvel things these days, the most talked about thing about this series is a cameo. Jangling keys, the possibility of the Kingpin showing up, or possibly Charlie Cox from Daredevil. I want to caution everyone, remember Mephisto, remember Jack Schaefer, the writer for WandaVision, didn't even know who he was, yet everyone was convinced he was going to show up. Yes, we did get the Quicksilver cameo, and that fell flat on its face. So when people want Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin or Charlie Cox's Daredevil in a Disney Plus series, be prepared to be disappointed because you will never see something as good as Daredevil on Disney Plus. On Disney Plus, Vanessa will be the Kingpin. And in the third episode, we did indeed get a Kingpin cameo, his arm, and a little laugh. That was most definitely Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin. Before you get too excited, I just want to ask you one question. Do you think we're going to see the Kingpin decapitate a guy with a car door on Disney Plus? Again, Daredevil Season 1 was a masterpiece because it will go places Disney will never go, not even on Hulu. On Disney Plus, you can't even go hard PG-13, much less hard rated R. So we're back in present day in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which I believe is 2025. And no, I don't have any idea what impact Kang has on this series. Apparently, the multiverse should be unraveling right now, but maybe they have it worked out. So Kate and Clint are being held captive by the Tracksuit Mafia while they wait for Echo. And I guess she made them wait all night because it was nighttime at the end of the second episode, and it's daytime at the beginning of the third episode. Clint, of course, is duct taped to a unicorn because we can't go 5 minutes without subtly or not so subtly emasculating a man on a Disney Plus show. And we're still on this Ronin costume thing, and this is starting to drag a bit because we all know Clint was Ronin, and it's all about waiting for the other characters to figure out what we already know. But we're not quite at the Clint's world closing in on a moment, which we probably should be considering we're almost halfway through the series, and we're still on the trying to convince everyone Kate is not Ronin, which is obvious. Clint tells Echo that Ronin is dead and he was killed by Black Widow, and he knows this because he was there. Echo and Kazi aren't buying it because they think the story's a little bit too convenient. After properly chastising Kate Bishop for her overconfidence, Clint finally escapes. At about the 15-minute mark at the episode, something actually happens. Clint fires his first arrow in the Hawkeye show, only after getting his ass beat by Echo. And we have a cutesy fight scene in the abandoned KB Toys where people are throwing stuffed animals at each other, falling in ball pits, and fighting each other with shopping carts. And yes, people do have guns, but there's no danger of them actually shooting anybody. This is Disney Plus. And after finally seeing Hawkeye shoot some arrows in the Hawkeye show, we're off to the car chase scene that everyone's watched on YouTube. Now, Hawkeye is going deaf due to his past exploits, and his hearing aid is broken during the fight with Echo. And prior to fighting, Echo counsels him a little bit on his hearing aid, telling him to ditch it and just rely on his senses. So Clint is driving and he can't hear Kate. She's firing off all the trick arrows, and I'm pretty sure she murdered somebody here. The car chase ends with the Avenger Clint Barton and the novice yet highly decorated collegiate athlete Kate Bishop jumping off a bridge. And the rest of the episode is pretty much people sitting around and talking. Although on the train, Clint does indeed tell Kate she is one of the world's best archers.
You're not wrong. Call yourself one of the world's greatest archers.
Over lunch, Kate and Clint are talking. She tries to convince him that he's an inspiration, although he says he's not a role model. She once again talks about his branding problem and designs him a costume. Then Disney Marvel decides to use this as a moment to clown Hawkeye's original costume. And I hate this on so many levels. It reminds me of this.
Sorry, what was your name again?
Dr. Otto Octavius.
Wait, no, seriously, what's your actual name?
Remember when superheroes wore costumes and Marvel took itself seriously? Yeah, it seems like a long time ago, doesn't it? Later on, we get a conversation between Kazi and Echo where Kazi reminds her that she shouldn't take too much time on this personal vendetta to find out who Ronan is because, of course, Ronan killed her father. And then she has to remind him who is Girl Boss.
You are.
Now that they've escaped the tracksuit mafia for what is the third or fourth time in 3 episodes, we're back to the did Jack kill his Uncle Armand thing, which is something I honestly could care less about. And after breaking into Kate's mom's flat and hacking her computer, the episode ends with Jack holding a sword to Clint's throat. And if you walk away from this episode feeling like you've seen a lot of it, well, you have, especially that car chase scene, which has been out for a couple of months on YouTube. The good in this series, at least it attempts to have fun. I think Jeremy Renner's character is shown a very surprising reverence that I appreciate. I think Haley Steinfeld is charming at times and annoying at other times. And I can see why a lot of people were comparing this to a Netflix series that isn't Daredevil season 1 and 2 because it seems like it's about an hour and a half of plot stretched out over 6 episodes. The bad in this series, the entire second episode was unnecessary. That could have been dealt with in 5 minutes. Then there's all the contrived moments in the first episode. So the Avengers just left all their stuff behind after Avengers Endgame. Kate just happens upon a black market auction that's selling the Ronin sword and costume. Oh, and the costume fits. And Deus Ex dogs who just happened to attack the tracksuit mafia guy right when he found the watch. Clint seeing a LARPing sticker on a fire truck leading him to the entire unnecessary LARPing scene. And the monogrammed candy. And the stories are going to get more contrived as we get these tokenized and derivative characters. And without a doubt, this was a bait and switch. Not as bad as Loki, but a bait and switch nonetheless. The trailers made it look like it was going to be a Hawkeye show featuring Kate Bishop, not a Kate Bishop show featuring Hawkeye. Speaking of Loki, Hawkeye's Disney Plus premiere underperformed Loki's by a significant amount. Hawkeye's 2-part premiere on Disney Plus underperformed compared to Loki, WandaVision, and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And since they didn't get any data from What If because it was so low, Hawkeye is the lowest performing live action series for Marvel on Disney Plus. Period. And I'll tell you why in just a moment. The latest viewership numbers reveal Hawkeye's premiere was the lowest performing Marvel live-action series on Disney+. Zombie TV, which tracks viewership numbers for 3 million households in the U.S., reported that Hawkeye's premiere episode brought in 1.5 million households across its first 5 days on Disney+. That's important wording right there. The show dropped its first 2 episodes Wednesday, November 24th, during the Thanksgiving weekend on the streaming service, and it seems 1.3 million of those initial viewers stuck around for the second outing, meaning 200,000 people dipped out when all they had to do on a holiday weekend was wait 2 seconds for the second episode to start. So why do I think Disney Plus is having performance issues and Hawkeye is underperforming? Well, it's a cumulative effect. You want to build something new, fine, but stop destroying the foundation to do it. Stop vandalizing, destroying, and degrading the established male characters. Now, I don't think that's what's happened to the character yet in Hawkeye in the first 3 episodes. While there's still great potential for that to happen, I do think his role's been diminished. I do think this is a bait and switch, but I also think the show might be suffering from what came before in WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Loki. And this is all deliberate. Kevin Feige said so back in 2018. Marvel boss wants more female than male heroes in the MCU. Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige has stated that his plans for the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe will mix things up for their roster of heroes. In his future plans, Feige has revealed that the number of female superheroes will soon outnumber the male superheroes, which will be an enormous change, most likely for the better. And how's that working out for you now, Kevin? You could throw in all the girl bosses and heroes you want. You still need to tell a good story. And quantity doesn't necessarily translate into quality. Just look at the last year for Marvel. And if you had so much faith in the female characters, why did you have to resort to the bait and switch with Loki and now with Hawkeye? So we're 3 episodes in and we're halfway through the series. And while there's some interesting elements, it still feels like we're stuck in the mud. But I'll be back once it's all over to review the Kate Bishop show, guest starring Hawkeye. If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard, I thank you for listening this long. I will see you in the next video.
Nerdrotic.com. Please subscribe.